Hey guys, how you doing? Hopefully you're doing okay. I'm going to read through pretty much all of the article here. There's a link in the description. It's not a crime. It's a bit of a political topic, perhaps, arguably to an extent. I'll tell you what's happened. A 93-year-old pensioner, and I'll show you her here, is heartbreaking. 93 years of age, her name Elizabeth Davies. She was left lying on the floor, screaming in pain whilst waiting for an ambulance for 25 hours. 25 hours lying on the floor, screaming in pain. So she fell, and this happened at a nursing home, if I understand correctly, at a residential care home in Wales, North Wales, I believe. And she had to wait 25 hours for an ambulance. So finally she was taken to, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I'm going to be practicing my Welsh throughout this article. She was finally taken to Ysbyty Gwynedd in Bangor, but then she had to endure another 12-hour wait to be admitted to a ward. Can you believe that? If I'm understanding correctly, she had to wait 25 hours to wait for an ambulance. Then finally, after 25 hours, an ambulance came, took her to a hospital, and she had to wait another 12 hours. That is disgusting. 37 hours a day and a half for a 93-year-old woman with a broken hip. In the United Kingdom, we all pay towards tax we pay for the National Health Service. I shouldn't say we, I'm not included in that anymore. But that's what the those in the United Kingdom do. They pay through their taxes to contribute to the National Health Service to get free healthcare. And this lady at the age of 93 has had to endure the physical pain of suffering for 37 hours without being adequately attended to. So hopefully at some point she's been given pain medicine or anything to alleviate the pain. Yesterday, Elizabeth Davies underwent surgery to determine the extent of her injuries after a hip fracture was confirmed. The article tells us that her son, Ian Davies, and daughter-in-law, Susan, from Pwllheli, have been left beside themselves with worry. Here's a quote from the son. "It was very upsetting to have her see her lying on the floor, screaming in pain for over 24 hours. Yes, Ian, that must have been devastating for everybody concerned. The Welsh Ambulance Service has apologised for what happened. It blamed winter pressures, high demand, and staff sickness levels." Going to go on a bit of a tangent here. You may not like this tangent. Okay, I'm going to highlight these points here. High demand and staff sickness levels. I'm going to be a little bit political at this point. I'm going to say that, well, what does high demand mean? High demand means that there are a lot of people in the hospital, that the hospital and the ambulances were being overwhelmed. That's what that means. I mean, perhaps more so the ambulances. Well, why are the ambulances so overworked? What's going on there? We've got to think about that. It's not just in Wales. I've seen articles which I've not covered, but articles in, I'm quite sure, New South Wales, Australia, certainly somewhere in Australia, I think New South Wales, Sydney probably, and they had like 8-hour, 10-hour waits for ambulances. That's not normal. Why is there such high demand? What the heck are these ambulance drivers doing? I mean, I'm not being too facetious. I know that the paramedics, the ambulance drivers and such, they're not going down to the local pub and playing pokies. I'm not insinuating that. What they are actually doing is they're going out to far more calls than they typically would have. Yeah, they're getting called out much more frequently. If they're working twice as hard, if they're going out on twice as many calls, we've got to ask ourselves, Why is that? Let me clarify. I'm not saying that they are going out on twice as many calls. I don't know what the percentage increase would be, but it does seem that there is and has been excess demand. More call outs for the ambulances. Am I explaining myself well? So look, that's something that needs to be looked at. I've talked about this for the next minute. Hopefully that sinks in. It's something I'm looking at. You know, keep an eye out. What do we see in the public? What do we read in these articles? Is there something going on in the world that's causing more people to need an ambulance? Something to think about. And then this next part, staff sickness levels. Okay, why are your staff sick? Why are you having more sickness in your staff than normal? Why is that? Well, it is winter time, sure. You know, winter time in the United Kingdom, that means there's a lot of flu going around. There's a lot of common cold going around. So yeah, okay, perhaps that's to be expected to a degree. But we're reading all over the place, you know, from America, from, you know, just go on the internet and we're hearing all kinds of people being ill with the flu, with RSV, with pneumonia. You know, it seems like, I nearly said the word pandemic then. You know, I see threads online that saying, oh, everyone at work's been ill like 5 times in the last 3 months. You know, they're ill for a few days and they get better, and then they're ill again. Oh, me and my wife keep getting ill every other week because my bloody daughter comes home with a cold. I'm hearing things like that. Maybe that's just anecdotal, or maybe a heck of a lot of people are getting sick out there, and that is causing the high demand on the ambulance service, on the wards within the hospital, and maybe that's having its toll on the staff. Why are they getting ill? Why are there so many staff that are sick? Is it just colds? Is that all it is? Is it nothing to worry about? Everything will be back to normal in a few weeks, in a couple of months? Or is it a more, I don't know the word, am I going to say endemic? Is that the right word? Is it going to be more of a prolonged issue? Sickness within the community, sickness within the hospitals, within the hospital staff. Is this going to be a more prolonged issue? Place your bets. Are we going to see more situations like this where a 93-year-old woman has a fall and has to wait 25 hours for an ambulance to come? Eventually gets taken to the local hospital, has to wait an extra 12 hours. All the whilst with a fractured hip. I'm going to say something else. It's kind of political. I'm going to use the term overpopulated. Overpopulated. That's the word I'm going to use. Okay, now, I'm no expert on population. I am no expert. But I do know that we've recently got to 8 billion worldwide. That's a record. It broke through there. It got to 7 billion probably like 20 years ago, something like that. But birth rates are collapsing, we're told. And recently, I probably shouldn't talk about the recent statistics. The recent statistics are incredibly worrying, what I've seen. But even beyond the recent statistics catering to the last several months, prior to that, as far as I'm aware, and I've listened to Elon Musk talk about this and a couple of other people, birth rates around the world, many countries, Japan in particular, have been in decline, in significant decline for, I believe, decades. What's my point? I don't know. Oh yeah, my point is population. Okay, so is it fair to say that the world is overpopulated? I don't know about the world being overpopulated, but my feeling is, and I've not lived in England for more than 20 years. Yeah, quite a bit more than 20 years. But frankly, it's overcrowded. It's overcrowded. I mean, you've got plenty of areas that are country, regional areas that are underpopulated. But if you're in anywhere near the cities, any of them, even what used to be the smaller cities, they're all overrun with people, with cars, traffic, but everything. So in some way, to me, it's no surprise to see that the NHS, the National Health Service, is overrun. Of course it is. You've got too many people, not enough hospitals. If the population was significantly lower, if it was a lot more modest, like it was several decades ago, then the NHS would have stand a better chance of being able to cope with the demand. But at this point in time, there's so many people in England. I think the population is like 75 million, perhaps it's more than that. It's no surprise to me that the hospitals are overrun. And this is in Bangor, which is, I believe I'm right in saying, in North Wales. It could be South Wales. But even, I guarantee, I'm no expert here, I'm kind of rambling, I know that. But I would imagine 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the population of the city of Bangor and surrounding areas would be relatively low. Relatively low, like 1 million people, maybe. That's my guess, I don't know. And I would imagine that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the medical facilities, the hospital and whatever else would have adequate resources to be able to cater to the local community and the extended region, the surrounding areas. But not anymore. Everywhere is overrun. Not everywhere. You know, the regional areas, some regional areas that are not properly developed, okay, fine, you know. But everyone just congregates into these cities and the cities are overrun. Anyhow, going to go back to the article. Going to practice my Welsh a little bit. Elizabeth Davies, the 93-year-old woman, who was originally from Minitho, Gwynedd, but moved to Pentryshaff after marrying husband Hughie, has been a resident in a care home in Llanderog, Llyn Peninsula, for more than 17 years. So, yeah, she's a resident in a care home. She's been there for more than 17 years. She's still relatively fit, and she uses a walking frame to get around the care home. We don't know the name of the care home. The care home has asked to not be named, which I guess is reasonable. It's not their fault that the ambulance didn't come. You know, it's not their fault that the fall occurred. You know, this isn't any accusations of wrongdoing against the care home. You know, they're just dealing with the situation that they have to deal with. They did the right thing, presumably. They called for an ambulance. It's not their fault that it took 25 freaking hours to come. Around 11:45 a.m. on Saturday, staff heard a bump. They found Elizabeth sprawled in the living room. They called for an ambulance, but were advised an ambulance wouldn't be available for 6 to 8 hours, as they were so busy. They said my mother, or the son said that, they said that my mother would be a priority because of her age. The care home then called us and we came immediately. Staff propped a pillow under Elizabeth's head and they did their best to make her comfortable on the wooden floor. The staff were excellent, the son said. They put a small heater next to her to keep her warm in case she went into shock. Staff began redialing ambulance control staff to make sure that they would be able to come as soon as possible. It's just terrible, isn't it? 25 hours lying on the floor. You know, they're not able to pick her up just in case it causes further injury. An ambulance finally arrived at around 1:15 p.m. on Sunday, 25 hours and 30 minutes after Elizabeth fell. Eventually, she got to a ward. She had to wait 12 hours to get to a ward. So here's some more quotes from the Sun. I don't blame the ambulance staff because they are told what jobs to do, and my mother wasn't on the list. But I was very upset by what happened. It was unacceptable. I mean, I agree with that, Ian. It's unacceptable, you know. Not only has Elizabeth Davies, I presume, contributed via tax through to the NHS through her entire working life, presumptions are made on my part there, but I presume also that her son, her children, her other family have done the same. They've all contributed, not perhaps not all of them, but most of them, hopefully, have all contributed to the tax system to help fund the NHS. And we do that. People do that. Citizens do that. Taxpayers do that in the belief that they're going to be well served in times of need, that their family will be well served, adequately served in times of need. Now, don't get us wrong, you know, the NHS is a public service. Nobody's expecting five-star treatment, you know. Delays are to be expected. We're not all completely unreasonable, but there's, you know, a certain standard that we do expect, and this falls well below that standard. And I concur with the son. It's not the ambulance driver's fault, you know. They're doing what they were told, and apparently they said that Elizabeth, given her age, was a priority. Perhaps she was, perhaps she wasn't. But either way, it does seem that this incident has been exacerbated due to the constraints placed on the healthcare system. Those constraints being the high demand, the sickness of the staff, the weather conditions, and I'm going to say again the overpopulation aspect wouldn't have helped. And so are things going to get better? Well, no, not really. That things will not get better. Apparently, there are some strikes planned. I think all over the United Kingdom. I could be wrong there. I've just seen a headline or two. But there are strikes. Paramedics and other healthcare employees are going to be walking out. They're not going to be working. They're going to be doing industrial action, meaning striking, on December the 20th, December the 21st, and the 28th. So a lot of the staff members, the paramedics, the carers, the nurses, are walking out. They're going on strike, industrial action. So what's going to happen when the next Elizabeth falls? How many hours, how many days are they going to have to wait on the floor before they're taken to hospital? How many hours, how many days are they going to have to wait until they're taken into a ward, until they're given adequate care, until they're taken into surgery? I mean, it's disgusting. It just seems like the system is in the process of falling apart. It seems like the system... I'm saying this as an outsider. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm just saying as a layman who's somewhat emotionally charged from reading through this article and understanding this situation here, it just seems like the NHS is a decrepit system. It's old. It's old. It's understaffed. It has too many demands placed on it. It cannot handle the demands that are placed on it. And if these issues continue, if the winter pressures, yeah, that's going to get worse, but at least that's going to be temporary. I mean, what are the winter pressures? Well, driving in winter is going to be more dangerous. We're going to have, especially with the cost of heating, there's going to be people suffering illness due to the cold. I guess more accidents, I presume, car accidents. So yeah, winter pressures, but high demand. Well, why are so many people getting ill? What's going on? And staff sickness levels. Why are so many staff getting ill? What's going on? Those are the areas that I think need the most scrutiny or the most answers. That's where the real problem lies, or a major part of the immediate problem lies with these issues here. Everyone's getting sick. We need to know why. I think we do know why. I think those The powers that be have known why people are getting sick for a long time. They're not about to tell us. So we've got to figure it out for ourselves, and I think people are figuring it out for themselves. I figured it out 2 years ago. Am I right? 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago I figured it out. And I've just been proven right so far. I'm going to wrap things up here, guys. So this has been a complete pointless waste of time. If you've stuck around listening to me, you must love my voice. Oh, isn't it nice? Was my Welsh good? Let's go over a few of the Welsh words. Isbyty Gwynedd in Bangor. And Pwllheli. I know Pwllheli. I've been to Pwllheli. Can't really remember Pwllheli, but I have been there. There we go. So look, best of luck to Elizabeth and Ian and Susan. And anyone else that suffers injury, let's hope that they get better care than Elizabeth Davies received. Thank you.